Do you like crazy workarounds in Power BI? Then this is the video for you. I'm going to show you how to set up a highlight interaction between one visual and a scatter plot, like this over here. Now, you see the size of the bubbles changes to differentiate between the items that are selected and not selected. We also have only labels for the selected items, and we apply transparency to the items that are not selected. Now, let's see how we can achieve this. Let's start. Welcome to How to Power BI. My name is Bas, and if this is the very first time for you visiting this channel, then hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on all of my videos in which I share everything I know about Power BI. Now, let's dive in straight away and let's see how we can set up that interaction with a scatter plot. Now, I have already two visuals prepared. Here on the left-hand side, we have the sales breakdown by the different manufacturers, and right next to it, there we are going to build a scatter plot. Now, to build a scatter plot, pretty straightforward. We just take the visual, go here to the build panel, and then we can say what we want on the x-axis and the y-axis. Now, here in our example, on the x-axis, we're going to take the total discount, and then on the y-axis, there we can take the total sales. So I'm going to select total sales, and then I want to have the breakdown by manufacturer. So I can put manufacturer here on the legend or here on values. Now, because I want to have a corresponding color with that bar chart, I'm going to go and put it here on the legend. So I'm going to open up my product table, select manufacturer, and that's it. So let's see what the default interaction is between these two visuals, the bar chart and the scatter. All right, I'm going to click this way. I'm going to make a selection. For example, I click here on Coder, and you see it filters the scatter plot. And I can hold my control key, make a multi-select, and you see still a filter that gets applied to the scatter plot, a filter interaction. And you might think, oh, easy, I just change it to a highlight interaction, right? Which you can do with some visualizations. However, here for the scatter plot, that's not possible. So if I take here that bar chart, go to Format, Edit Interactions, and then I select the bar chart, you see I can only filter the scatter, or I can choose, well, to have no interaction at all between the two. But what I want to have is a highlight interaction, where the bubbles get bigger for the selected items and the labels only show for those that are selected. And the other ones get more transparent. Now, how to achieve that? That's the question. Now, we're going to start off with the size of the bubbles, because that's actually the easiest one. Now, the tricky thing here is that we cannot just turn off that interaction between the two visualizations, because, well, then the bar chart doesn't communicate to the scatter plot which manufacturer in this case, is selected. So therefore, I need to have that filter interaction. Now, the problem at the same time is that, well, obviously it filters the scatter plot, and it shouldn't. Now, to work around that, we need a separate table. Now, let's go to our data model and add a table that contains all of the manufacturers and the information about the sales and the discount. Okay, now let's start there. Let's switch to the data view first and then click here on New Table. Now this is going to be a helper table or a disconnected table, however you want to call it. So I'm going to say HD, helper table, and then manufacturers. All right, now here I want to build a small table, and I'm going to start with add columns. Now you see the first argument of add columns is a table, which we can return. Well, here we want to have a list of all of the manufacturers in the first column. Now, how can we achieve that? With many different functions. Values, distinct, all selected. Just pick one, doesn't really matter. So let's say we go for distinct in this case. So distinct, I want to have the manufacturers, all right. And then I want to have one column that sums up the sales. So that's going to be my sales column. Now for that, we already have a measure. Let me just refer to total sales, all right. And then we have a discount column. So discount right next to it. And also there I have a measure. So over here I can just say total discount. Now make sure that you use measures here, and if you don't have a measure, well, then you need to wrap it inside of a calculate to force context transition. Now if you don't know what that means, just check out this video over here. Okay, now over here, just the discount amount I can refer to, all right, would also be fine. So either a measure or a sum, and then wrap it inside of a calculate to force context transition. Okay, now I'm going to close the add columns. Let's see what it returns. And there you go. We have sales and discount summarized or aggregated by manufacturer. Now, what are we going to do with this table? Let's switch to the modeling view. Now here, I only took the fact table sales and then product from my data model. However, let's now also drag the helper table in. All right, now you see it's just an extra layout of my data model where I only pick the relevant tables, okay? And this one we're going to relate to dim product, okay? Now, I would like to have this relationship on the manufacturer, right? So over here we have manufacturer, over there we have manufacturer. So drag one on top of the other, creates the relationship, and then I can just put it right next to it, like this. Okay, now that means if we take manufacturer from the helper table, it will filter dim product, and that filter goes to sales. However, if I take manufacturer from dim product, well, it doesn't filter that little helper table over there, because that arrow that you see on that relationship line, that indicates the filter direction. Okay, so that is important, because now if we go back to our report view, and here we're going to update the scatter plot. Now we're going to replace all of the fields. Now we're going to take sales, discount, and manufacturer from that helper table. All right, now let's do this. So I'm going to get rid of all of the fields in the build panel. And then here on the x-axis, well, there we're going to take the discount from the helper table. Let's drag it on there. Sales goes on the y-axis. All right. Now you see the bubbles already pop up in the right places, because at the moment we are not summarizing the amounts, right? You see, don't summarize. All right. And we want to have manufacturer on the legend to apply some color. Now, manufacturer can actually also be on values. However, well, then you get this error message, because, well, then you need to say, okay, I want to have over here the average or the sum. Well, you need to summarize the discount and the total sales. But they still pop up in the same places because there's only one value for each manufacturer. Okay, now that we have this, well, you will see that that filter interaction from before doesn't happen anymore. You see, nothing happens. Why? Because in that bar chart, the breakdown is created by a manufacturer from dim product, not from the helper table. And remember, in the modeling view, the filter doesn't go from dim product to the helper table manufacturers. However, it does the other way around. Now, why is this important? Because now over here, I make a selection for a manufacturer. And with a measure, we can pick up which one is selected. And on that basis, we can make the bubble sizes here in the other chart a little bit bigger or smaller or whatever we want. Okay, now let's do this. So I'm going to create the size measure. Let's go here, click on the three dots, new measure. Let's call this measure size. All right, so size is going to be equal to, well, we need to know two things. We need to know which manufacturers are selected in the bar chart. Now, there, the selection comes from the product table. So that's one thing. The second thing that we need to know is, well, what dots do we have in the scatter plot that correspond to the selected items? So the ones here from dim product manufacturer. Okay, now let's figure out these two elements. So we're going to put it in a variable. Now the first variable we can call manufacturer scatter, so from the scatter plot, which is going to be equal to, well, the selected value, which is a function that only returns one value when there is only one value. Okay, so we can say HT, helper table, and then here we can refer to the manufacturer column. Okay, that's the first component. And then we need to know the selected items in the dim product table. So let's call this one selected manufacturers. All right, and also here we can use the selected value function like before. However, now we refer to the manufacturer in dim product. All right, and with these two components, we can create a logical condition. So let's create our last variable. Let's call it size then. So now we can say if and then manufacturer scatter. So manufacturer and then scatter. If this is equal to the selected manufacturers, so over here, let me copy that over. Then I would like to return a certain size. Now, this is just going to be any random number. All right, so let's say 8. And then what if it's not equal? Well, then I want to have a smaller size, so therefore 1. All right, and because we have variables, we need to say return and size. Okay, now this is then the measure that's going to determine the size. So to do that, to use it, we have to go to the scatter plot, select it, go to the build panel, and then here, place it on size. So let's look for our size measure, place it on there, boom, there you go. Now, it might be that you still have to adjust it a little bit, either in the measure, that's one option, or you can also go here to formatting, and then you go to the markers, And then here, the overall size, you can also make it a little bit smaller, right? So let's put it to -25 in our case. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now you see that Coder is still selected, so that one is a little bit bigger. Let's also select DigiWatts and Cybrick. You see those are then the bigger bubbles. Now, here, still a bug. You see it gets cut off. A little bit annoying. Two ways to solve that. Now, one option is to go again to formatting for the scatter plot. Then here we have the x-axis and y-axis, and then just hard code the maximum. So over here in our case, we could put in 175 million. All right. And then the second option that you have is to use conditional formatting and make it dynamic. So you look for the maximum value, multiply by 1.2 or something, so that you create a little bit of extra space to the top or to the sides. All right, so that already gives us the first part of the effect that we are looking for. However, we are missing the color. So let's also apply some color here. Now to do that, we need to, well, select, again, the scatter, go to the build panel, and then here we need something on legend. Now, you might think, oh, then I just take manufacturer, put manufacturer here on the legend, ta-da. Now, something is a little bit off. What is off is that if I select here DigiWatts, then you see the color doesn't correspond. Now, why? Because the colors will only be automatically the same if the field that's being used to create the breakdown, here the manufacturer, is the same. And it's not the same because here we have it from the helper table, and in the bar chart we have it from dim product. Now, easy fix? Well, not really, because if I would go to the bar chart and then also take it from the helper table, you might think, oh, that fixes it. However, it doesn't. So let me take out manufacturer and then replace it over here with manufacturer from that helper table. Okay, now that looks actually good, right? We have DigiWatts here in purple, DigiWatts there in purple. Looks good. Now, the thing is though, that now we have that field from the helper table. And as soon as I make a selection here, you see now it filters the other one. And that shouldn't happen. Because the whole purpose of that helper table is so that it doesn't filter the scatter plot, all right? So therefore, this is not an option. Now, how can we still get the right colors in there then? Well, first of all, we need to, well, undo what we did before. So let's undo this. Let's take the bar chart and then replace manufacturer again with manufacturer from dim product. Okay, so that doesn't happen anymore. Okay, now let's just double check. Select DigiWatts over here. Now, over here, it's not being filtered. However, it still shows DigiWatts, bigger in size and, well, still in the wrong color. Now, to fix the color, well, we can do two things. Either we go now here to that scatter plot, and then we go here to markers. Then you will see here on the color, we can just manually change all of the colors, which is okay. We can, for example, take DigiWatts and, well, look at the color here, pick the same color. So I believe it's that one over there. Then go to the next one. Then we have Cybrick. Cybrick is pink there. Oh, it's also pink there. So I believe this one is actually already fine. Or maybe it's a little bit other pink. Yeah, like this. Then we have Coder, and we do this one by one, trying to match the colors. Okay, now that's one option. Second option that you have is to do it with a measure. And I prefer the measure option because, well, that gives us a little bit more flexibility and also allows us to apply transparency to those items that are not selected, all right? And that's kind of nice. So I'm going to go over here to that scatter plot and, well, to be able to use a measure, we need that FX button. However, at the moment, no FX button shows because we have something on the legend. So you need to remove any field that's on the legend. And you see now we have that FX button over there. However, my scatter plot is kind of ruined because, well, we need to have manufacturer now on values instead of on the legend. Okay, so I'm going to go to my helper table, put manufacturer on the values. Boom, there you go. Now, once the field is gone from the legend, you will have a nice little FX button showing up there under color. So we can set the color using a measure. So let's write our color measure. So let's go here and add a new one. And let's call this one conditional formatting color. And we can use a switch function. Now, the first argument of a switch, well, is the expression that we want to check against. So over here, there's then the selected value. So let's start with that selected value of the manufacturer in the manufacturer table. You see that this new pop-up builder is always in the way when you write a measure, but we can click it away. However, then I have to return back to my formula again. Bit annoying. I hope they're going to fix that. Now we want to check the manufacturer. All right. And then we can just make a long list of the manufacturers, all of the items of that field, and which color we want to return. Now, let me do that quickly. Now, there you go. And then we can use that measure to apply the color to our scatter plot. Now you see that change the color from before still stays, right? Until we apply our measure to the marker color. All right, so I'm going to switch here to formatting, markers, click on that FX button, and then here we can choose the field value, and then here we just have to type in CF color pops up, click OK, boom, there you go. And now you see we have the corresponding colors between the two visualizations. And if I click here, Digiones, there you go. Okay, now, of course, we can then also use that same measure here in the bar chart. Now, the thing is though, well, here we are checking the manufacturer from the helper table. So you would have to make a small adjustment to be able to also use that same measure here. Now, let's therefore go back to our measure, CF color. And what I would need to do, because there's no filter going from that helper table to dim product, we would have to use the calculate. And then here as the first argument, we have the select value, just like before. And then we have to make sure that only for this measure, also there's a filter that flows from dim product to the helper table. Now, to be able to do that, we have a treat as function where we first take the values from dim product manufacturer. All right, so dim product manufacturer. And then for that second argument, there we can refer to the manufacturer in the helper table. So this one over here. Okay, and then just close that calculate, just like this. And now we can use that same measure to apply the color also to the bar chart. Okay, now let's do that quickly so that they are always exactly consistent with one another. All right, so let's open the formatting options, bars, and then also here, when there's something on the legend, well, we cannot click here on the CF button. We have to first remove whatever is on the legend. Only then the FX button shows up. All right. So over here, let's look for CF color. Click OK. And now we are always sure that they're exactly the same colors. Okay, perfect. Now we get to the second part of our requirements, and that is that I want to apply transparency to those that are not selected. Okay, now that is actually kind of easy. We just have to make a change to the measure that we just wrote, right? So if we go here to conditional formatting, and I'm just going to paste in the code that I wrote before because it would take too much time. Let me just paste that in. And well, that looks a little bit overwhelming to start off with. However, it's almost the same code as before. Now here you see kind of that key logic that we wrote before. However, with an adjustment. And that adjustment there is over here, opacity selected. We have here RGB A, which also allows us to apply transparency or opacity or determine how much transparency or opacity is applied to the color. Now you see here at the top, there we have, let me just get rid of that line. There we have opacity selected, 1. That means there's no transparency at all. And then over here for those that are not selected. Okay, now how can we know which ones are selected and which ones are not? Well, we have here the if, right? If it is selected, then apply the ones with no transparency, and otherwise apply the ones with transparency. And that's it. That's just a small adjustment. And let's see what happens. Well, over here now, still looks the same. But now I'm going to make a selection. You see, only those that are selected have no transparency. All the other ones have transparency. All right, so that's the second effect that I wanted to achieve. And now the trickiest one. Now, the next one is to get rid of the labels of those items that are not selected. Now you will see this is quite a workaround to achieve that last effect of only showing labels for the selected items. Now, how to achieve this? Well, first I thought, okay, this is going to be easy. We just go here to the formatting options of the scatter. And then we go here to category labels. And because we have recently got a new upgrade of Power BI where we have dynamic labels, I thought, yeah, category label, AVEX, write a measure when what needs to show on the labels. But these are category labels. not data label. So that option is unfortunately not available here. Now, hopefully it will be available because this workaround is crazy. But if you need it, it's kind of nice to know this little trick, okay? So now this is not an option. And also other workarounds that I've thought about, maybe using labels of error bars or conditional formatting on the color of the values, not an option. There's no FX button here. Very limited here, the scatter plotting functionality. Now, what now? Well, the workaround that I came up with takes a few steps, so follow along. I go here to our data model, and let's select again that helper table with the manufacturers. Now what I want to do is create dummy markers that exactly overlap with the data points that we are currently showing in the scatter, all right? However, will not show a label, okay? Now let's see. Now, I'm gonna go here to the formula. Now, how can we achieve that? Well, by exactly duplicating what we have here, right? So I can do this by using a union function where you say, okay, we have the union of the current table, this one over there, all right? And then exactly the same thing below it, all right? So let me format this just like this, all right? And then close it. Now you will get an error because that relationship that we set up from before in our modeling view, this one has a one-to-many, and there's not a one on the one side at the moment. So I have to change this now to many. So let's do this. I'm gonna change this to many. This can stay as it is. Click OK. All right. Go back to the data view, and all right, that error message is gone. And now I'm going to add a column to both tables. So over here, I'm going to have a column. Let's call it manufacturer 2. All right. And here I just want to return the manufacturer for that first table. But then for the second one, let's copy it also to the second table that we add. Here I just want to show blanks. Okay, so here just, well, a blank. Or maybe let's put a space in there. Just a space. Okay. So you might wonder, okay, how is this going to help us? Well, let's see what actually happened to our visual. So if we go back, now you see at the moment it still looks the same, but we are going to change the manufacturer breakdown with the new field manufacturer 2. All right, so here in values, I'm going to take manufacturer 2. Now, looks almost the same. However, you see we have that big dot there in the middle. Now, what is that big dot in the middle? Well, it just takes the average sales, average discount for, well, these lines that have a blank, okay? Well, this is not exactly what I want to have. What I want to have is one dummy marker for each data point for each manufacturer, right? Now, that doesn't happen because, well, this is basically one value, a space, so everything gets summarized for that space. So that's why it exactly shows up there in the middle, because it's just the average of the sales, average of the discount. Now, what is good though, is that we have that dot without any label on it. And that is the important part. The only thing that I still need to do is break it apart so that it exactly overlaps with the markers for the manufacturers that we have. Okay, now to be able to do that, we go back to the data view. And then here we just put in a different number of spaces for each manufacturer. Now, how can you achieve that? Well, whatever way you like, right? So you can also pre-build this table or do it in Excel, import it, or maybe in Power Query. However, one way to achieve it is then we say, okay, we can calculate, for example, the rank, right? Because the rank is going to be a unique value here for every manufacturer. So you can say, okay, rank all of the manufacturers that we got here. So manufacturers, and we're going to rank them on the basis of, let's say, total sales. All right, so total sales. Okay. Now you will see this gives us then the rank for each manufacturer. Now, and then I wrap this inside of a repetition function, so wrapped. Now, what do I want to repeat? A space, so quotation mark, space, quotation mark. How many times? Well, is determined by the rank. Now, for us, it just looks as, well, empty cells, okay? But there's a different number of spaces. Why is this relevant? Because if we go back to the report view, you see that dot in the middle is gone, and now it's behind all of the markers that are there for the manufacturers. And you will see this if we open the filters panel, select the visualization, manufacturer 2, and you see here we have all of these empty ones, right? And then here we have all of the manufacturers. So that means if I select all of them, and now I deselect some of the manufacturers. So let's say I deselect here Cybrick and see what happens. The label disappears because the only dot that shows there is the dot for the empty one, right? And you see, if I do that for the other ones as well, in this way I can show or hide the labels. Now, of course, at the moment this doesn't happen automatic. So that's kind of the next thing, to make sure that this happens automatically for the ones that I select here in the bar chart. Now, this is kind of the final piece, the cherry on top of our ice cream to make this work. Now, actually, it's not, this part is the easy part if you understood it so far. Now we're going to add a measure, and let's call this one then filter. All right. Now here we can use an if function again for our logic. So if, and then we want to see if the manufacturer in dim product. Now here selected value or max, whatever you prefer. So dim product manufacturer over there. If it's equal to, and then, well, we want to check manufacturer to. So manufacturer to from our helper table. So manufacturer to. Now, if it's equal, then we want to return a 1. Otherwise, we want to return a 0. Okay, so let's close the if function. Now, if I would use this measure as it is at the moment, then it will actually just create a filter interaction. Now, let me show you that before I make any further adjustments. So I'm going to go here to the scatter, and then here, let's get rid of that filter from before. That was just to show you. All right. And then we take our new filter measure, drag it onto filters on this visual. All right. And I want to only keep those manufacturers in the manufacturer to column where we have a 1, right? So when it's equal to 1. Now you will see when I now make our selection here, DigiWatts, let's say, well, we just have a filter interaction. Well, that we could achieve in an easier way, right? With just editing the interactions. However, the thing is, it also removed those manufacturers that are empty, right? The dummy ones that we just added. So I'm talking about these ones. So these ones over here, and those I want to keep. So we just have to make a small adjustment to our filter measure. So here I'm going to say that I want to keep those rows in the helper table that have, well, that empty manufacturer to, okay? Now here we can add an OR condition where we can say, okay, the value in manufacturer to, so manufacturer to, and let's reverse the logic by putting not right in front of it, okay? Should not be in, well, in a list that has all of the manufacturer names, right? So over here I can say all manufacturers, all right? Just like this. Now, let's take it also from the helper table. Okay, good. So when it's not any of the manufacturers, right? So the empty ones with the empty spaces in there, right? Then I also want to show them, all right? So kind of the dummy ones. Now, gives us over here an error because I'm missing something. And what I'm missing is a closing bracket over there. All right, now let's fix that. Okay, the measure should work now. Let's switch to the report view, and that looks promising. So you see, we have all of the manufacturers at the moment when nothing is selected. So that's good. And then I'm going to make a selection, let's say Cybrick, and ta-da, we have only a data label there for Cybrick. Hold the control key, let's also select Coder and TechClip right next to it. Works beautifully. So we have all 3 things that I was looking for a highlight interaction. The size of the bubbles changed, we only have labels for the selected items, and we have transparency applied to the ones that are not selected. Ta-da. Now, of course, a crazy workaround, and I hope in the future this is going to be way easier. However, for the time being, it's kind of a cool workaround, and it gives you a good insight of all different kinds of tricks that could also be helpful for maybe other workarounds. Now, I hope that you like this video. If you have any questions or you want to share your thoughts about this workaround, other than, well, it should be easier because of course I agree, then put it in the comment section below. And if you're interested in seeing more videos about tips about visualization and design, then check out these videos over here. Now, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Oh, and before I forget, I have another design training coming up where we can build reports together during multiple live sessions spread out over a period of 4 weeks, and you get all different kinds of resources about report design. Well, all the details, you can find them over here. Well, see you next time.